So, dear ladies and gentlemen, we're pleased to welcome you back at our conference. Now we have learned from Polish experience, and now we have heard about the Ukrainian initiatives of how to create an investor for projects that are going to be attractive for the investors. So let us now talk about the finances, how to develop the local economy, to create the industrial zones, industrial parks, or other types of the business support. Up till 12:30, we're about to discuss the local economy, and the moderator of this panel is going to be the senior experts of the You Lead with Europe program, Dmitry Korbut. So, as usual, you can take all of the links for the simultaneous interpretation in your newsletter from the organizers, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a very important issue for all of us, and I wanted to once again to welcome all of the participants here. Wanted to congratulate you with the holiday, with a remarkable day that we celebrate today. Would like to congratulate everyone who's responsible for the local self-governance in Ukraine. As it has been already announced, our panel is going to be considering the local economy and business development and all of the issues concerning that. We are today talking about the importance of the infrastructure. We have said that we wanted to develop the infrastructure at the local level. There are some types of infrastructure that are responsible for the business development. They are crucial for the businesses. The businesses, in order to be having the opportunity to develop itself, to get higher level of the international market, to get higher into the domestic market, it requires a certain area, it requires certain resources, it requires certain conditions and prerequisites that will give them the opportunity to work more effectively and to facilitate and empower those processes that would just be puzzles without the infrastructure. So basically, the examples of this kind of infrastructure are going to be discussed today at our panel. We're going to be talking about the industrial parks. We have heard about this format for multiple times already. We know that Ukrainian government has dedicated a lot of attention to this issue, and they have been developing this format for quite a long period of time already, and a lot of communities might be interested in that format. That might be very good for them, but we would like to emphasize during our discussion that it's not the only possible format for the development. There might be multiple other formats available, and they can be adapted for the needs of the particular community. So we have to analyze the needs for the specific communities, and we have to find the best approaches for that. But before we will find the final solution, let us listen to what of the information that we already have about those available formats for us. Let us have our panel today. So we're going to have very different expertise represented in our panel today. We're going to have the representative of the Ministry of the Regional Development, Mr. LUKERYA. He's here with us today online. He has joined us already, and I would like to ask him to tell us in what way the government is going to be developing the format of industrial parks and business parks. I have the representatives of the local self-governance here with me. We have here Bohdana Vustovich, who represents the Luka municipality, the one that are participating in the local development projects competition that we have conducted with You Lead with Europe. We have Yuri Fomichov, the head of the Slovenia municipality. That are also developing their own format of industrial parks. That is very interesting as well, and very interesting to learn how they're doing that. And online, we have Yuri KOBAL. He's going to share with us his experience. Yes, Yuri, we're glad to have you here, and we're going to learn from him of how this format has been developed in Slovenia. But right now, I would like to pass the floor to Ivan LUKERYA from the Ministry of Regional Development. So please, Ivan, tell us, please, and how do you see that in the ministry? How do you see the development of businesses, development of the industrial parks at the local level and communities? Please, the floor is yours. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, and welcome. And as a representative of the Ministry of the Regional Development, I would like to join this welcoming speech and would like to congratulate the communities. I'm really welcoming their taking their ownership and the responsibility for the development of their municipalities. We have a very big team that has been working with the local communities and municipalities, and we really hope that our communities are going to be capable not only in the financial sense of this this word, but they will also have those capabilities and capacities that will provide for the welfare and the well-being of the communities, will support its development, and so that Ukrainian communities will provide the highest quality of service provision. And that is a very symbolical day for us today. 31 years turns today the 31st anniversary of Ukrainian self-governance, and since the communities have started to be built in Ukraine, and I do believe it's a symbolical date that our conference has started its work on the 7th of December, in the day of the local self-governance, and I do believe that can be counted as a milestone for the development of our communities. Speaking about our work and speaking about what ministry does right now, we have built all of our strategic plans on the three pillars, on the three strategic priorities: the financial, the priorities, and the strategical building on all of the levels of the governance. Speaking about plannings, our strategical planning, and it has to be the plan for the development of every community, they have to understand what our community is about, where are we going to, what are our strong points, what are our resources that we have, that we can use for the development of our total community and municipalities. What are the specific projects that will help us to implement the full potential of our community? In the end, every community, every municipality should answer a very simple question: what we are about, what makes us us, why we have been created, what it is we're functioning for, and in what way we're improving our potential, in what way we are implementing all of the opportunities available for us. Of course, we have these documents that are the strategies for the municipalities and communities development, and on the legislative level, we have outlined that the strategy for the communal development has to be created by every community that has been created in Ukraine. For us not to search for the chaotic order, but to find those answers to these questions: what are our priorities, what are our potential, there has to be a systematic work done before, that has to be then voiced out in the strategy for the development of the community. The next direction, the next pillar for us is the financial support. To allocate the budget resources and to concentrate the budget resources on the regional level in order to reach those goals and implement those projects that have been outlined in the strategic documents on the local level, the strategy for the municipality or the communality development. At this very moment, if we will speak about the context of the development of the local economy, the support of the local economy, we have more money in the state budget than we have the high-quality projects on the level of the territorial community. Unfortunately, that is still reality for us. We have more opportunities to allocate money from the state budget, and we do have fewer projects, development projects created by the local communities, starting from the Fund for the Regional Development and ending up with a state subvention that is dedicated for the infrastructural projects and economy infrastructure projects as well for the communities. Sometimes even the issues with water supply and with sewage is also the issues of the economical infrastructure that can be supported by the state fund or the state programs. So basically, the project of the budget that has been approved for 2022, we have the main tools outlined for the development of the regional communities. We have the Fund of the Regional Development, we have the state subvention on the industrial park, we have the state subvention on creating of the economical development, we have the infrastructural subvention, we have the drinking water subvention as well, and the support for creating for the Center for the Administrative Service Provision. We are continuing the reform on getting the residential towns connected to the broadband internet connection. So those are the menus of those financial tools and financial opportunities that are now available for the municipalities and communities. And of course, this resource is going to be allocated on the competition base, and those communities are going to be receiving those financial support that have planned their activities in the best way. So we're getting back to the first point. Good planning is first of all. The third point and the third pillar is the good governance on all of the levels. The good governance governance, it is the crucial point that can provide the good financial allocation and also the victory in the competition for the resources. At the local level, we are really hoping that we will have the people who will improve the governing capacities of the regional and local governance, especially in the local authorities and the territorial communities in the Agency of Regional Development. We do hope that the founders of this kind of the supportive agencies will be the territorial communities, and we do hope that this agency of regional development will be basically the platform to get all of the representatives of local authorities to get together so that they would be working for the benefit and for the development of their community and region. Of course, the capable communities and the big cities, they can create their own agency of regional developments that will support them as well. There will be additional resources that will be providing the development projects for the economical infrastructure as well, that will be able to get all of those projects prepared on the high level that will help us to win in this competition. Speaking about the tools, legislative tools available at this moment, we are mostly concentrated at this very moment as the governance of the government of Ukraine in two directions: on the support of the industrial park creation. This can be this kind of investment havens for communities when you can create all of the needed conditions in order to engage private investments. Industrial parks is a platform, is a tool of getting the entry, the price of the entry lower for the investors. What should we need to do from the side of the industrial of the communities to do that, to engage into this project? There are two important things in this case. We can allocate the additional land lots to be registered as industrial parks, and on the other hand, we also can provide the development, the good design of the feasibility studies and the development of the good concept for the development of the industrial park, engaging all of the potential that we have in the territorial community and in the neighboring communities or municipalities in order to empower the industrial production in this region. And we're also developing all of the needed for the high quality project documentation for building up the infrastructure of industrial park, the water supply, the energy supply, providing the infrastructural connection to that. The local communities, instead of just renting out their land or selling out the land or providing it under the construction or providing it for the solar power plants, the local communities right now, they can allocate those land lots as an investment lots for the private investment as industrial parks. For the big cities, our approach is to support the communities through creation of the innovative infrastructure, creating the innovative technological parks for the development of the creative industries as well. We're speaking about the creative economy projects, technological park infrastructure, or the infrastructure for the labs, or for the micro production, for the research, for the IT sector, so on and so forth. So there is a different infrastructural approaches that will help us to create the ecosystem for the development of the creative industries in the intersection of different sectors from IT to marketing, PR, and journalism and other sectors. For the local self-governance, of course, the basics, in this case, the basic homework in this case to support the local economy is also to working with the clearing of the territory with your communities. So there are some banal things that you can do that will help you to develop your SMEs, for example, for providing your own products. In the rural areas, you can create cooperatives, for example, for different sectors of the agriculture, starting from dairy and ending up, I don't know, fruits and vegetables cooperatives. There is a huge potential in that, the one that will definitely help us to create the products with value added and not just selling commodity as it is. That's under the responsibility of the local self-governance, and this kind of approach, in our point of view, is definitely help us to concentrate the main efforts of the local communities for the benefit of the local economy, but not just on the renovation of, which is important as well, and renovation of the infrastructure to provide the best services for the population, but will also help the opportunity to provide the best services, administrative services, that will provide the best provision of the administrative services, and the communities, they have to now get their attention on the development of the local economy. Then those are the main theses that I wanted to outline at this very stage. And I have voiced out those tools that are available from the Ukrainian government at this moment and those plans that we have for the years to come. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Ivan. I think that I would like to ask all of our participants to ask your questions in the chat. And if you have any questions, please pose them to our speakers as well. We will try to cover them if we will have this opportunity. We have already heard that there are some factors that are really important, especially if you're working on the local level, especially when you are working on the support of a certain infrastructure that is needed for the business development. We have already heard from Ivan already there will be a very different approach that will be used for the small cities, small communities, and the big cities. We have outlined for ourselves that the main target audience may be the external businesses as well, but what is very important too, we should keep in mind the local businesses. We want to develop the local businesses in our communities as well. I would like to pass the floor to Jurij KOBAL at this moment, and I would like to learn from him in what way Europeans have treated that, what European experience tells us about that. How do you see the development of industrial parks and technological park in Slovenia? But before I pass the floor to Jurij, finally, I would like to remind all of our participants that we have interpretation, so please, we will send this link for the simultaneous interpretation once again in our chat. Please use this command, please do those instructions to use the interpretation services, so you would be able to learn from the Slovenian experience in Ukrainian as well. But please, Jurij, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dimitri. I'm happy to speak after Mr. LUKERYA pointed out to some very important issues in development of any business support infrastructure or any business support measures that we are developing. The ownership and leadership in local communities or in the region is the key. Until we have leaders, until we have owners of the processes, we are going to be weak and the capacity will basically not develop. And the other thing he pointed out is this strategic approach. And I would like to basically point to some directions that, and basically build on what he said, is if we look strategically, we have to look to the World Bank's data, which is basically presented here. If we look to the sectors or the economies that are developing or capturing the most of the value, and what we would like to focus on is we have to be careful when building business zones, technology parks, or whatever we call them. When we engaged in Ljubljana, for example, in development of the technology park, we said, no, we don't want to work only with producers, with people who assemble things. If we want to capture the value and if we want to design and sell products that are of higher value, we have to integrate them with R&D, with designers, with services developers, and anyone who's basically able to develop the value. And if we go on with my presentation to the next slide, the key point of understanding, if we look strategically, is that if we focus our business zone or our industrial zone or technology park to companies marked with blue that are basically focused to assembly and production, we will lose the value. So we are not going to be able to create products that are of higher values. We will maybe assemble them. We will maybe be able to help others to put them on the market, but the key will be basically in assembling something. And if we go to the next slide, what I'm pointing out, and Mr. LUKERYA pointed out very, very profoundly and with good idea, is that we have to connect companies that are working in the assembly and in the production with R&D, with services that are developed around products. Many years ago, when I was working with Renault on establishing their ISO 14001, we were looking at production of Clio. Can you imagine what's the production cost of Clio in one assembly company? It was 700 euros at that time, while Clio was sold for 11,000 euros. So the difference in the market value and in the cost or the value of the production in one of the facilities was huge. So where all other value goes is exactly to what I'm pointing at. So when developing the business zones, the industrial zone, technology park, you would like to bring in the designers. You would like to connect people from local communities, being small or big ones, to connect to R&D, to innovation. So they come together and build products that will be able to engage in higher levels of value chains and basically bring more value in the community that is building the technology park. So that's the whole point. And how to do that? It's exactly to what Mr. LUKERYA was pointing at. You want to talk to people, you want to build the community because you don't know the solutions. You don't know how the business is going. You don't know how the value is created in a certain value chain. So you as a mayor or expert or organizer of the technology park or the business park or any other support mechanism, as I said before, you will open the discussion with others. You will open a discussion throughout the whole line, from R&D to logistics, to assembly, to design, and try to understand what is the business needs in order to create value. And with this, you will integrate more local companies, more mid-sized companies into the process and try to bring more value in. Otherwise, you're just going to sell your workers, your low-wage, low-salary resource, which you probably don't want to. And as Deputy Minister Ihor Korkovi, sorry for the pronunciation, said, eventually Ukraine will have to pay back the loans. And if you position yourself to products that don't integrate many of the small companies, many of the high value adding companies from design, as I said before, services, marketing, you are not going to be successful. So I'm pointing you to the 4 Ps, which would like to say, look at the place where you're working. So the resources are there, from land that was mentioned, from communication that was mentioned. Look to people that will work there. Not only look to what you can offer today, but look to the future of work, where you will invest funding for education. How will you develop skills around the technology park, around the business zone, around the industrial park? And then precisely look to the formats of collaboration you have to establish. And that should be the key point when developing the industrial zone, industrial business zone, or whatever. So look to the collaboration formats that you would like to establish in order to bring the higher value into your community. And that would be for thinking and for the strategic approach that was mentioned by both speakers before me. So that would be my short discussion, and I would leave it to others to discuss further on. Thank you.
So thank you, Yuri. I do think that we've added something very important to our puzzle. Now we do understand that formats, these business zones, industrial parks or technological parks, let's call it the business development territories, the infrastructure we want to develop at a certain territory. It may actually depend on the size of the community. It may depend on how exactly we want to build a target audience. Do we want to involve big investors, external stakeholders, or we want to create just local enterprises, small ones? It's really important to understand what we want to develop. So sectoral specificity is important. But a very good remark we had from Yuri. Even if you want to develop business, which at first glance is not related to innovations and R&D and high tech, we still have to take into account these aspects that he mentioned. This should be considered because, of course, it may help us to develop the business anyway. It may relate to our business zones, future business zones, industrial zones, or whatever. And by the way, we just need to define the terminology. So we do have clearly to understand that industrial park is what we have in the legislation envisaged, the format that we have in the law. We have a law on industrial parks, and this is the format supported by the state. And this is the format that stipulates specific conditions. So we have to ensure at least provide 10 hectares at least of the land to develop such a park, and we get certain privileges for business to be involved to work in this park. But it was mentioned that so many other formats are there, you know, the agenda, which can be acceptable for certain communities. And as I mentioned in the beginning of discussion, we have representatives of 2 communities with us, and they, by the way, decided to establish the individual format, the format which is more acceptable for the community. Yuri Formichev, you'll be the first to present the experience of industrial zone establishment or industrial park that you have in your community. It's really interesting. I read a lot about your park, and I really do want to get it from you. Okay, so good afternoon, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. I would like to congratulate you all with this important holiday. So everyone who is involved in the activity as a representative of self-governance body, so please do love your job, do get only benefits from your job. So, and I want your work to be productive, as much productive as it can be. And right now I'll tell you how exactly we were paving the way to our business park that we have today. And what I should start with, just a little bit of history. So, we are the youngest town in Ukraine. The town was established after the Chernobyl tragedy for the former employees of the station to work there. So we were built during the USSR times, but unfortunately the construction was not completed, and we had the earthquake and the tragedy, and we had so many problems at that time. Even that big state, that empire, was not capable of dealing with 2 big issues at the same time. But the town had almost 90% of all infrastructure that was required. We have schools, kindergartens, and each kindergarten with a pool, by the way, and sport complexes, recreational complexes, and centers. But all this requires proper maintenance, and it requires a lot of resources. Big infrastructure, anyway. By 2000, the infrastructure was actually under subordination of the Chernobyl power plant, and we got the funding from there. But a political decision was made in 2005 to actually stop the nuclear power station, and the whole town was actually in a shock. It was like a pre-depression state, because people came to this new town just to look for better conditions, for better life. They expect to get some salary. They wanted to be a part of electric energy generation system, and now we got this information that the station stops, and no generation process to be continued. The energy generation block will stop, and we had to transform the economy from monovector to multi-vector. So now you know that the station is not generating anything. All the town infrastructure was subordinated to municipality. Now it's a municipal property, and all the maintenance problems were delegated to the community. It was not easy. At that moment, we lost 8.5 thousand of well-paid jobs. Many people left the town because they did not see themselves in that kind of surrounding. But today we still have people working at Chernobyl power plant, decommissioning it, because this is a big, serious infrastructure object, you know. It requires, of course, proper attention. Because of the tragedy that we had in 1986, and we still have people working there. We had a great tool in our hands for the town to survive and to actually revive with the new economy format. And we picked this way to develop, creating conditions for SMEs to flourish and to create this multi-vector market economy. At municipal level, we got a tool called Special Economic Zone. With this tool, we managed to create more than 1,000 jobs. Within 5 years, we involved more than $50 million of investment. So this tool is truly an effective one. Yes, due to some problems within the territories where we had the same tools used, like special economic zones, and we still have this dispute with the Ministry of Finance because they are the key opponent with us. Why such tool is not revived? I think it will be definitely a great one for Ukraine in a current condition, and we have so many critical infrastructure enterprises almost decommissioning, and how should the communities develop in those settlements where we have these enterprises? Nobody knows. If we speak about the budget losses, what the Ministry of Finance is trying to appeal to, I just want to say, within 5 years, the subjects of the Special Economic Zone paid to budgets of all levels 4 times more, comparing to subventions they had. This is economically beneficial for the state, and we have to take this way. Yes, we have industrial parks, we heard of that, but it's quite a complicated tool, and it's really complicated. We took another way. In 2017, we actually joined the mayor's agreement for economic development, and we have a local plan of economic development drafted, and everything started with it when we decided to create our own business park, but not just with a business park, but not just the business park, which is interesting. The experience we had in 2000, 2005, so we wanted to support our business, small business in particular, create favorable environment to involve investment, attract investment, but we also had this parallel dialogue with the community. We had interviews and surveys. We involved people to train business. We wanted people to understand what is business, because when you are an employee of a state enterprise, you think that the only one who gives you money when you put your card in the ATM is the state enterprise. Everyone else just take your money. But actually, SMEs, they do form the municipal economy. They pay taxes, they create jobs, they rent our municipal property, they pay for land. So our initiative was aimed to develop the regional even cooperation. We actually do interact with our neighbors, Mihailo-Kotyabinska community and others. And of course, it's more for agricultural vector. And Slavutich is also unique because we are located in Chernihiv region, but we administratively we are a part of the Kiev region. So we had no merge. We had no communities merged. We had actually the same boundaries even before the decentralization. So nothing changed for us. Slavutich is still the same, still has the same status. So we won the competition launched by EU, and we had some nice bonus, 650,000 euros for the project. As we heard from Mr. LUKERYA, these tools, these are there in Ukraine. We can use it actually. We just need to develop proper documents, apply for projects, and get the funding, get the support. The most important part is to understand what you want, where you want to go, and just move in that direction. Task number one for the community. You have to know what your competitive advantage is. For mono settlements, this is hard because we were created just to provide services for the acting nuclear power station, and therefore we transformed our economy for SMEs, for business development, just to replace the lost jobs. In details about our business park, about our institution, about our infrastructure that we managed to create. So we took the premise that was inefficiently exploited. You can see it. We have even such premises there in our young town in horrible condition. We had previously owned by the state because nobody had money just to maintain it. After the nuclear power station stopped, we have very powerful infrastructure again, but it requires a lot of funding to maintain. Therefore, it promotes us to accelerate economic development, look for additional resources and energy-saving formats, because we want to spend less to maintain the infrastructure. We want to spend less on energy supply, and it creates a drive for us to develop and move forward. So, I guess this is one of the key moments. I started with history, because when you get an emotion, which just makes you move forward because you can't do that anymore. So you may stop and the community dies, or you just become competitive. So we have a territory where we have entrepreneurs able to get all the services they require. That's how it looks, the business park, from outside the night time. You can see it's a real photo. And we have 10 industrial premises. You can enter and start your business just putting your equipment there. So all the networks are there, all the supply networks, the conference hall, the offices, you can see it, and how much it costs. You can see. It's very important for the communities, I guess. 3 hryvnia 77 kopecks. That's a rental fee. We found a mechanism which actually allowed us to offer these conditions, rental conditions. And we offer to sign an agreement to use a business park, rental agreement within 72 hours. Within 72 hours, we sign an agreement, rental agreement, with our potential small investor. Even the investor who just puts a coffee shop on wheels and selling coffee is an investor. He or she requires the support. These people create jobs, even individual entrepreneurs. The person is minimizing this pressure on the state budget. So we take everyone on the board. And this business park, we have, well, it's quite small, not like 10 hectares, much smaller, but it actually helps the small business. And mostly these premises are filled, and offices are filled completely, by the way, no vacant offices. And one big enterprise decided to use our capacity to place their offices while they're refurbishing their own, and you can see that there's an opportunity to get some consultations, conference service as well. It's absolutely affordable, and it's really convenient, and we provide high quality, of course, services. We created these conditions. This is definitely a so-called investment nanny, fully functional, just ready to attract investments to Slovenia and to support economic development. If we come back to rental relations, when we decided to launch the project, when we decided to actually launch our development plan, we wanted to provide some preferences and privileges to locals in the context of rental, but legislation changed and the new law was adopted.
Because the rent upon this object was calculated as 138 hryvnias per square meters. We understand what does that mean for the small community. The small community that is located 200 kilometers away from Kiev, 138 hryvnias per square meter. No one will come to these conditions of the rent. So basically, we've tried to analyze the law on rent, and we have provided the mechanism that given us the opportunity to put this offer. 377, 3 hours to sign up your agreement. Please come to us with your investment, and we will basically provide all of the additional services for you that are needed. Moreover, I've already said that we're collaborating with our communities, and if you will take a look at the map, there is big two communities around Slavudic city, and Slavudic is in the center, so we have combined in our municipality the active people from our neighboring communities. And altogether, we have conducted the meetings with our populations from all of the communities. We have invited them for the celebration of the Day of Economical Development. The dialogue with people, the dialogue with communities is very important. So we have already heard this. You have to engage people. You have to talk to people. Why we are doing that? Why it is important for us to build entrepreneurship? Why the small and medium businesses are important? How to become an entrepreneur? That's all the topics that have been discussed. We have the separate trainings for the development of entrepreneurship, for the development of the social and economical skills. All together, with our efforts, together with our partnering communities around Slavudic, we have launched a couple of the joint regional development projects, and we have already started to apply for the cross-sectoral support. By the way, from the Ministry of Regional Development, we have won the project a year before and started implementing it already, so that was a very good bonus for our communities. We had the good examples as well because those communities, they started to participate in our agreement for the economical development and our plan for the economical development for the future years to come. They have joined that as well, and I just wanted to say that our plan has been also evaluated by the World Bank and it has been evaluated highly. So that's very important when you have the strategy in this direction, and you have the good position for the investors to come to your territory, to get to your community that is an investment-friendly environment. Summing up, I just wanted to mention what it has given to Slavudic overall, just a couple of words and numbers on the screen that precisely show you how we are transforming our economy and what is our economical development goals. So every year, starting from 2017, we had the increase of the share in the local budget from the share of the SMEs income, and even in 2020, the pandemic year, the COVID year, when we had most of the service paused and stopped, and they have been surviving and struggling, we have not experienced a significant downfall because basically due to those incentives that we have provided to our businesses as well. That's a very important note for us. And I just wanted to outline as well, and when we have started the transformation of the local economy, the income for the local budget from the Chernobyl nuclear power state was 97%. Right now, it's slightly higher than 40%, but we can already see that SMEs are responsible for almost 30% of the local budget. So the risks of losing the income from the nuclear power plants is now lower because basically in one day we have lost 8.5 thousand jobs. So that is the story of Slavudic and our business park. We're always open for the dialogue. We're open for the further collaboration. I would like to invite you to the youngest city of Ukraine to come to us, to share our experience. We're always ready to share. We're always ready to share both our victories and our mistakes. And I would like to also always tell you that basically we had a lot of expertise. We also used it to our park, the industrial park word, and we had a problem with that because we had 10, 15 hectares of land to be provided for that, and the industrial parks are slightly different. So we had to prove that this is a slightly different project and it's slightly different industrial park that we mean when we are talking about that in a broader legislative definition. Thank you for your attention. I'm ready to take the question if you have any. Thank you, Jurij. That's a very interesting practical story from your side. And when we have practical stories, we have a lot of questions coming from our participants. I will give you some time to think about this question. And speaking about the rent, What were the tools that you have used for the rent decrease? Because you see, people really liked it, and people would like to get more details about that. How did you do that? And I'm going to have a small question for myself as well. During the next presentation, you'll have some time to think about that. Can you give us a couple of examples of the businesses that you are developing in your industrial park that you would like to tell us that might be very interesting for our participants to know? Another very important element that we have learned from Jurij's presentation. First of all, it's a great pleasure for us to understand that they have been working with the idea of industrial park. So that also gives us a certain message for the communities that you should not be scared about this word industrial, so you have to think about creating infrastructure or providing the territory available for the business development as well. But what we have heard and what we have seen, that in practical experience, we can conclude that there are other formats, the other formats that are more adaptable for the local communities. We will have this opportunity to talk in details with the experts that are responsible for the creation of industrial parks all over Ukraine during our Ask the Experts meetings that we'll have in the same time as the conference goes. What we have seen from their experience that we have to have a broader communities if you would like to create the industrial park in this classical meaning. And it is important to have the need from the big businesses. The industrial park is a structure that is created and targeted for the big businesses. If we have one, two, or three, even more demands from the big businesses who would like to, or the local big businesses, but it's a very rare situation when we have the big businesses locally and who would like to create the industrial parks. But if we will have, for example, external demand from Ukrainian or from international investors on that, then it would be a very good, acceptable format. If we were only be based on the small producers, on the local businesses, or the small businesses that we would like to engage from the regional level or from the other parts of Ukraine, that it is important for us to consider other possible formats as well. Another important detail that we have heard from Jurij's presentation is that we can consider collaboration with other communities and municipalities located around us. The industrial park, business zone, business park, whatever format that you would choose for creating the business-friendly territory for your communities, maybe there is a sense not doing that on your own, but to get together with those communities located around you that are also interested in developing the business sector around them in their communities. Another moment that we've also have heard, I just wanted to highlight some of the moments. I'm not trying to repeat what Jurij said, but basically I want to highlight that we should not mix up the understanding of financial support and creating the infrastructure in field. They are complementary notions. So we can see that in the example of Slavutic city, that we can provide the infrastructure with a certain territory and provide certain services that will help us to build up the infrastructure and help us give us the opportunity for the businesses to facilitate the business conduct and give additional jobs for the people who will be managing this territory. Now, I would like to pass the floor for the next example, a good example that is even closer to my heart, and I will not hide that because this is the project that has been developed in our framework of our initiative, in the framework of the EU-LEAD initiative, the development of infrastructure and investment project of the regional level. We have really tried to do our best in that, and we really wanted to ask Jurij for those important elements for how you can work with those elements of industrial parks. We tried to combine that in our project as well, and those projects that we have been developing in the intra-municipal format, so we have a couple of communities engaged in each project. And what was really important for us was really good for us to see that all of those ideas have been considered when you have been creating the industrial park or the free business zone in Slavutic. And all of those issues have been also outlined in our next projects. I will pass the floor to Bohdan Afustovich, who's going to tell us a little bit more about their projects, how they have engaged the local businesses, how they have got up to the conclusion what is the best fitting format for development of their business zone and industrial parks for their community, the community of Luka Balashivka in Lviv region, in Vinnytsia region. So please, Bogdan. Yes, thank you very much. Dmitry, thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure for me to be here today. I'm really grateful for this invitation. It has been a pleasure for me to hear the previous presentation because the project that we did was really alike. And to see that it actually works is a pleasure for us because we've also got to the same ideas through fails. Our community is quite young. It is around 12,000 population and it conducts around 12 residential settlements with we're looking for the high development of the businesses. It's not enough for us only to provide the basic services like the medical services, education. We have to support them in a good well-being as well and the welfare and to develop our community dynamically. So it's not enough for us to use the resources that we have in the community. We have to keep on searching for the new investment. We have to keep on broadening our scopes. So it's a good thing that when we know what to do and when the big investors join our community, that's a great step for the development. But what should the small communities do, the one that have no opportunities to engage big investors, to wait for a certain amount of time? No, people would like to develop now. They want to feel it's getting better right now. When we have conducted the analysis of this project, we have understood that this project is important not only for our communities, but it is very important for most of the small communities all over Ukraine. So building up the municipal business zone, so building up the infrastructure for small businesses. The budget of this project is 20.5 million hryvnias, and it is based on for 2 years. It's about the municipal collaboration, because we understand that the intra-municipal collaboration will be the first notion that will help us to reach the sustainable development. The partners of our programs are the 2 neighboring communities. One of these communities is Vinnytsia city, the Vinnytsia National Technological University, and the Vinnytsia Municipal Council that will give us the opportunity to get our projects to the regional level as well. I wanted to say that the implementation of this project would be the first for our region. It has already been outlined in our development strategy that we have approved a year ago. We have mentioned that in our regional development strategy, and it also meets the requirements of our national development programs. In order to improve the infrastructure for small and medium businesses, we have to create certain conditions for them so they would like to work with us. As our speakers have already said, we have some premises, we have some basis and foundation to start with. In our case, unfortunately, we don't have the foundation. We only have chosen a certain location that is, in our point of view, very convenient because it is located in very close to the territorial center of LUKERYA. It is at the intersection of the big highway, and it is in close connection to the railway connection, and it is also closely connected to all of the engineering infrastructure and grid, which minimizes the need for the connection. And basically, it is only 14 kilometers away from Vinnytsia airport, what gives us the opportunity to locate there the multi-profile production lines. What is in the basis of this project? In the basis of this project, so that the small businesses would be able to develop, we have to provide the certain conditions for them. The certain conditions would include the open premises and the covered places. So you can rent out the premise and start your own business with no problems involved. The format of 72 hours, that's very good. If you already have the business that works, it's very good for that. And we would really like to work on the same idea that we can work as fast as possible. But if it's a new producer, that we would like to work as fast as possible, that they can get connected and started working in the fast pace, in the most comfortable way, so they would be able to launch already and provide the profit. And that communities would benefit for that, and the businessman would benefit for that as well. It's not enough just to engage the entrepreneur there for them to be developing things at our territory. We have to teach them as well. So the project presupposes the creation of one-stop business zone. So creating this kind of zones where we'll be providing the consultation, the legal support for everyone who likes that, for everyone who would like like to be developing there, because basically we're not only targeting the business indicators, the more producers we have, the best. We really want them to be high quality producers. We want them to be developed as well. We want them to get to the other market. We want them to know that there is the a lot of support that helps the local businesses. That it's a very important moment, because when we have been analyzing the ideas and when we had this analyzed with our entrepreneurs, with people who have got us to this idea of what is needed and in what way it should be. So there's a lot of entrepreneurs who wanted to create the businesses. They have the premises, but they lack knowledge. It's not enough for them to create business, to establish business. They need to know how to operate. So in order to do that, we would like to provide them with a free aid and the free of charge workshops. In order to do that, we will have a special department created in the center, and we're going to be engaging our partners. As an example of Vinnytsia, they have a great example of the people that we will be able to engage in technical universities that we might use for the project implementation. That's very important. I wanted to mention that this land going to be in the municipal, or going to be owned by the municipality, and they are going to be treated by the municipality, not the premise, not the land is going to be provided for the ownership of the entrepreneurs. It's going to be rented out. What is very important as well, we're presupposing the construction of the infrastructure with our partners. So you can change the infrastructure and the configuration of the infrastructure depending on the need of that producer who is there and who wants to work there. If they will change their profile, we can also meet their needs. A very interesting peculiarity of our community, because we have a very long history, and through the years, the members of our community, they have been also planting pears. The pears, the plums, the apples, what we usually use to dry, they have been creating that and planting that for years. And there's many people who are trying to recreate these craft products, but they have no opportunities to do that. They have no knowledge to do that. They have no help to do that. And in framework of these projects, we also have included this opportunity to provide the small and micro businesses to be developing that, to show our authenticity, to show something that was there. We all know that Vinnytsia is boasting our agricultural lands and agricultural products. We also dealing in horticulture and berries. And one of our problems is that we're selling raw commodities. We're not selling the processed final product, what the previous speakers has mentioned as well. We are forced to be acting in those market conditions that we had at this moment. Apples are the product that are getting spoiled in the fastest pace, that sometimes the farmers have to sell it even when they are suffering from that. It causes a lot of entrepreneurs to close their businesses. The prices for apples at this very moment has caused us to the idea that our community is going to destroy 130 hectares of gardens. They were speaking about the loss of the jobs, the loss of the product, the loss of the income for the budget. Thus, the implementation of this project is very important for our community. We're going to be engaging people who haven't been involved before, because even though our closeness to the administrative center, around 3,000 of people are unemployed. That's a very huge number for our small community. So that is why this very project will give us the opportunity to decrease the entrepreneurial pressure for the small communities and give the opportunities for our community to develop. So that is why I do believe that it's a very relevant project for all of us, and we have to develop into this direction too. Thank you for your attention. Our community is always ready, is always open for the conversation, and we're always ready for the development of small businesses. Thank you, Bogdan. Thank you so much. A great example once again, and I was really impressed by what you've said, that you have been in 15 months, you have been considering these issues to find what is the best format for you, the best format for the business zone, for the industrial park. And you have understand that the industrial zone format is not really good for you, understanding that you would like to to develop the local businesses, small businesses, maybe craft businesses, then maybe the industrial park, classical industrial park, is not the most acceptable for you. I will pass the floor to Yuri, but I would like to ask you, Bogdan, to think about the next question. That would have been very interesting to learn from your side. We know that you have engaged 40 enterprises to talk about this local business zone. If you could give us a couple of words of how you established the dialogue with the entrepreneurs, what kind of infrastructure was needed by your entrepreneurs, and what was they interested in building this kind of territory for the business development. That would be very important, but I would like to pass the floor to Yuri.
So I would like to give you one of the comments. Thank you, dear participants. Thank you for this wonderful meeting, and thank you for inspiring us, because your case was really interesting, very practical, highly practical. And the combination of various elements, and right now we are coming back to my question, to the participants' question. So how did you manage to organize this rental price? How did you manage to get this? And a couple of cases of enterprises supported by your park. Thank you, friends. Thank you. Expected question about the rental price, because it's really, really a hot issue for all, and this new rental law is, of course, putting us in some framework. Slovutich uses project management system for quite a long time, and each project of that type, of that scope, we always have a team implementing it. And when in front of us, there is like, well, we had this challenge in front of us. How shall we implement the project when we have 138 hryvnias per square meter? Okay, business park had to just be a nice premise, and you could just make your selfies there without anything. So we found a creative approach, managed to get it. So we actually kept it under the executive committee responsibility, and the rental auction was launched. You know what rental is, and there are a couple of stages which can lead to lower rental price. We could have taken this way of looking for investors, saying like, okay, wait, 90 days, and then we'll finally go to a lowering auction, take the minimum price, and you will get some favorable conditions. But 90 days, and it means some risks for the entrepreneur. So when we announced the rental for the whole premise, we just announced the management of business park with a sub-rental opportunity, and within 90 days for the whole premise, the regional development agency became responsible for it. So they have this 10-year agreement with executive committee, minimum rental rate, with a right to transfer to the sub-rental. So the sub-rental relations, we have in 72 hours for sub-rental agreement signature. We can even make it shorter, but I think 72 hours is really fast and great. So this is life hack from Slovutich regarding rental relations. You can find an institution, a municipal enterprise, which would rent municipal property with minimum rate, wait these 90 days, 3 months for lowering. If nobody else comes, like, it lowers twice, specialists may tell me. And then the next step is gradual lowering to the minimum. Someone can come, it's the risk, someone can come and say, I want the minimum price, but what we lose? Nothing. Nothing. If we properly write all the guidelines and rules, if we give all the premise for rental, to create conditions, this all should be in the rental competition guidelines. The business would, if the business says, I want to manage the park, attract investments, and make some money with my own services, okay? I can tell you, it's more effective, well, nothing is more effective than private property. But in our case, we have a very effective municipal enterprise working for so many years. And they are the municipal investment nanny, which is taking care of each local investor, foreign investor, giving absolutely great conditions, inventing something which appeared to be impossible yesterday. Now, in digital format, we all have these digital signatures, and for people not to go to Slovutich, personally, if you need to sign some documents, and this method works. We have all the opportunities. We just need to go beyond the box, let's say. Please do use it. Just if you have any questions, we'll explain that. I can give you copies of documents even. And Who is employed in our business park? I just mentioned that office premises are fully taken, and this is the cooperation with the state. We have a big enterprise left after the decommissioning of the station, and it was established to provide services to functioning blocks. Now this enterprise is expanding and requires additional support, but they don't have like proper offices, and we just offered our business park to them, not necessarily for entrepreneurs. It may be used by you as well. If you have the need today, we are ready for this period to give you the same sub-rental within some sub-rental conditions with the same price as I called. Please pay for services, please pay the utility bills and just work. And we have small entrepreneurs started working in the business park, logistic company. I don't know if it's an advertising or not. It's a company, logistics for business, not more for like individuals, but for business, creating comfortable conditions. And they take one unit, one block, and we have business, the textile company, so a small craft production. Also, the craft beer producers did send us a request. We wait for them quite often. People ask us, Slavutic, it's a strong association with a beer. Well, not quite. We're not quite a beer producing town, but anyway, we do have these companies as well. So all these entrepreneurs are ready maybe to take risks, because in modern economy it's hard to forecast anything. Who could have predicted pandemics prior to 2019? Nobody knew. It was really hard, and we started this project long before the pandemic, and we had other approaches at the table. We have it. We have the profile, and I do think that we will fill in all the business park premises. We will create the best conditions for SMEs. Thank you. Thank you, Jurij. Again, we need to underline the aspect. Taking into consideration what was happening in industrial park, this decision must be a specific and a separate for each community. So what you took, like, okay, you took your enterprises, what enterprise you had after the nuclear power station was decommissioned, and they used the space. This is individual. It always depends on the situation in the community, and advertising local business, which is transparent and located there in your community, paying taxes to your budget. You have to advertise, because not much of that we have. If they do it, the smallest thing that we can do, you know, the smallest support is just to advertise. And we have more than 300 participants right now at our conference. They all heard about your logistic company, and this is quite a positive, this is great information. I pass the floor to Bogdan again, and coming back to my question. So how did you communicate? How did you build the dialogue with local business, with these 40 entrepreneurs who were interested to develop your business zone? Thank you for the question. You all know that after the decentralization reform, each community is making its own money mostly. So the taxes from enterprises paid, this is one of the budget filling factors. Let's say so, when I took this position of the head, so what the key task was to de-shadow the business, to help it to work legally, to be registered in the community, not somewhere paying taxes elsewhere, but in the community. So we actually started building the dialogue with existing entrepreneurs, and when you talk to them, they start telling like what the problems are, that lack of capacity, no space, no opportunity to extend, and what challenges they have, like the electricity shortages or gas supply problems. And this idea just emerged on its own. Quite often entrepreneurs comes and says, I actually produce tiles. If you have premises, I would enter the premises, but or other entrepreneurs come, they want to us to give them a land plot, they want to build a cookie factory or a confectionery factory. I don't know. So this is quite an important issue, and it was generated by need, not just like, oh, let's do something because we are bored. it's something that is critically important for the business today. Thank you, Bogdan. Thank you. I do think that this is an important element of the discussion. Quite often I hear from communities, what do we need to do to register the business in the community? Okay, because quite often the business is registered elsewhere in the regional center or in Kiev, and this is one of efficient tools. It works. Business is interested, in this case, to pay taxes to the community budget. If business sees that the community gives feedback, supporting the business to grow, supporting the infrastructure development to help business produce more. I'm so grateful for this discussion. I think that it wasn't even the 100th part of those questions we may have when it comes to decisions on industrial parks and business zones. But again, I want to remind all of our participants, those who registered for the meeting and a separate expert meeting, we will still discuss it today after lunch and tomorrow in the morning, this specific issue, in our new format of expert meeting. And we will even more thoroughly discuss all these formats and how to establish the industrial zones and business parks. I want to express gratitude to all of you, to those participants joining us online, of course, Mr. Ivan and Mr. Jurij KOBAL from Slovenia. He joined us from Slovenia, and this is a great benefit of this online communication. We can have a direct talk with those experts, staying not that close, in the context of experience and distance, of course, and geographically, yeah. So Jurij, I think, noted a lot of things there. He was doing that, yeah, definitely. So we learn from Slovenia, Slovenia learns from us, getting some experience, and the cases that we saw in communities today, this is truly magnificent. It's inspiring. It just gives us the stimulus, the impetus for the format to flourish at local level. Thank you, and I pass the floor to Miss Nina. Thank you. Thank you, Dmitry. So, we've just finished a very interesting and very, very useful and practical session on local business development. We got some cases on how the local governance promotes and nurtures the local business with their ideas. And as Mr. Korbut said, we have 300 participants staying with us, I hope, joining us online. So right now we all will have a wonderful chance to stop for a while by 1:30. So we actually want to get you back in 1 hour with the same links, because we are going to talk about social inclusion, and this is of crucial importance. So stay with us. Thank you.